Hello and welcome back to the internet. Today we're going to be talking about the pentatonic scale and all of the nuances thereof, wrapping up our pentatonic mode series with a bow. Also, if you stick around to the end, I'm going to be going through a little bonus tip to help you play and extract just a little bit extra out of the scale, so stick around for that. There are basically 4 tips that I want to go through that not everybody think about when it comes to playing the pentatonic scale. So without any further ado, let's get into that. Number 1. It is made up and derived from the major scale. Just like everything in Western music, our pentatonic scale is derived from the major scale. So if you take all the notes from the G major scale, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and G, and you remove the 4th degree and the 7th degree, you end up with a pentatonic scale. You end up with 5 notes, whereas we had 7 in the major scale, hence the pentatonic scale, penta meaning 5. Number 2 is that the 5 different pentatonic shapes are derived from each respective mode of the pentatonic scale. What's a mode, you may be asking yourself at this point? A mode, I like to think about like this. Let's take the G major pentatonic scale, for example, because that's what we've been kind of focusing on. We've got G, A, B, D, and E. If we play that scale, just starting on G regularly, we get G major pentatonic. But if we start playing that scale on A and then end on A again, we get what I and others like to call Dorian pentatonic. A, B, D, E, and then G. And so what happens is if you do that again with B, you got B, D, E, G, A, and then B again, that gives that scale a new name and a new unique flavor or sound. It's just a way to kind of get a little bit of a different sound and think about and play around in a different way. Number 3, each scale that we play, or each pentatonic shape that we play, does not always necessarily end perfectly on the note we started on. So it's not exactly a symmetrical scale in that sense. For instance, if we're playing the Ionian pentatonic shape, then we've got our 2nd finger on the 3rd fret of G, and we play that all the way up into the 5th fret of the high E string, right? And that's an A note. So that shape starts on G and then ends on A. We never really play a scale for playing a scale's sake. But if you want to play that scale in its truest, purest form, you're playing from the root to the root. The reason that we learned those shapes like that, though, is because we want to be able to know what every single position of the pentatonic scale, all of the notes therein have to offer. Here's another thing to be thinking about. You don't have to learn all these scales a bunch of times over. All you have to do is learn them one time, and then you can shift them around for every single key. For example, if I play G major pentatonic, and now I'm in the key of A, all I have to do is shift the Ionian shape up to where my root is starting on the A note, and then I have A major pentatonic, or A Ionian pentatonic. We'll cover shifting positions and keys in future lessons, but just rest in the fact that you only have to learn one key. The rest is just a little bit of a mental shift. Speaking of shifting pentatonics, let's clear up this business of major versus minor pentatonic. So we can view major pentatonic and minor pentatonic as the same thing. If we know our relative minors and majors, the relative minor to your corresponding major will always be the 6th degree. So if we have G major, the key of G major, E minor will be our relative minor. And those scales have the same exact notes within them. If you're unfamiliar with your relative minors and majors, here they are on the screen real quickly. Go ahead and study up on those if you need to. But if we're in a minor key, we could also call the 3rd degree the relative major. So it kind of goes back and forth like that, vice versa. In order to prove that this is the case, that G major and E minor are like the same notes, they have the same things going on within them, let's hop over into an example. Let's play a bit. Okay, so here we are. We're about to play E minor pentatonic over an E minor chord progression. I'm gonna do the E minor and then I'm gonna do the E major and just see how that kind of doesn't work. E minor chord progression, very nice. E minor pentatonic. E major pentatonic over E minor. You can just tell it kind of doesn't work. Right? Because what we have there is we have the thirds clashing. Kind of. We have a lot clashing. For the minor scale, we have flat 3, flat 6, and flat 7. So there's a lot of different notes. Here is G major with E minor pentatonic. Same position I was just playing in. Basically, I was just kind of hovering around in Aeolian, and I went back to Mixolydian for a little bit, and then Phrygian. The shapes, right? Not really the modal sound of them. Okay, so here is G major pentatonic with E minor. G major chord progression. Very nice, very chill. Very nice. Okay, now let's see what happens when we try to play G minor pentatonic over G major. You could make an argument that some of that worked, but probably it sounded mostly weird. But now let's go to our blues chord progression. And blues is interesting because this is the cool thing. We can use both major and minor pentatonic, right? So we've got our parallel major and minors, right? So our parallel major would be, if we had A major, A minor would be the parallel minor of A major. And then we would have like E minor, E major is the parallel major. You know, B major, B minor is the parallel minor. So it kind of works like that. We can play parallel in blues, which is really cool. Here's the minor pentatonic with a blues chord progression. Something, right? Here is the major pentatonic, E major pentatonic over this blues chord progression. It really works well. So we just played E minor pentatonic over that. Now we're playing the parallel major, E major pentatonic over that. And notice how that works. It sounds very happy. Something like that, right? With blues, you'll notice you can do both and. If you stuck with me so far, here's the extra tip I was telling you about. It's this. You can play the Ionian pentatonic shape or the major pentatonic shape over any single major chord, right? So all you have to do is make sure that your root note or the note that you're starting on is aligned with that root note. Our major chords in the key of G are G, C, and D. So notice this over G major. We can play the Ionian pentatonic shape starting on C. These notes sound like they want to go somewhere. We can do the same thing with D major. Just start on the D note, which is 10th fret of low E. And that'll work pretty well. So you can play C Ionian, you can play D Ionian pentatonics in the key of G. And the same thing will go for any key. You can play Ionian pentatonic, the major chord shape, over any major chord. So 1, 4, and 5, you can play, if you start on that note, right? So say we're in the key of E. You can play Ionian pentatonic on E, you can play it on A, and you can play it on B also. So there's our examples of the pentatonic scales and how they fit inside their respective keys. And so now that you know that, why don't you go play around with that for a little bit? And if you made it this far into the video, consider subscribing. Also like, also subscribe, and tap the bell notification, also subscribe. Thank you so much for watching up until this point. I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart. Looking forward to seeing you in the next one. And again, check out that superimposing pentatonic scales video. It'll learn you a lot.